The day I discovered my parents' betrayal started like any other Tuesday at Oakwood Hills Country Club. The immaculate greens stretched out before me as I parked my modest Honda next to a row of luxury cars, each worth more than my annual salary as the club's events coordinator. If anyone had told me that morning that I'd soon uncover a decades-old family secret that would turn my world upside down, I would have laughed it off. I'm Alexandra Bennett, though most people call me Alex. At 32, I was living a life my grandfather would have found amusing, working at the very country club he'd built from nothing, but never allowed to join as a full member despite being his only grandchild. The service entrance-only sign I passed each morning felt like a personal reminder of my complicated family history. Grandpa Richard had been a self-made millionaire who turned 500 acres of rural Massachusetts into one of the most prestigious golf clubs on the East Coast. When he died 5 years ago, everyone expected him to leave Oakwood Hills to my father, his only son. Instead, he left everything to me with one condition. I couldn't take control until my 35th birthday. My parents, Charles and Diana Bennett, were devastated. They'd spent 30 years running the club, building their social status, their entire identity wrapped up in being the faces of Oakwood Hills. The thought of their daughter, who preferred jeans to designer dresses and had once suggested opening the club to public memberships, inheriting everything was apparently too much to bear. "You don't understand the responsibilities," Mom would say, sipping her perpetual glass of Chardonnay. "The traditions we uphold here, the standards we maintain." Dad was more direct. "Your grandfather was losing his mind at the end. He didn't know what he was doing." 3 months ago, they finally wore me down. With the club facing financial difficulties and membership declining, they convinced me to sign over my inheritance rights. "It's for the best, darling," Mom insisted. "We have the experience to save the club. You'd only struggle with the burden." I believed them. That's what hurts the most looking back. I'd actually believed they had my best interests at heart. The truth began unraveling on that Tuesday morning when I arrived early to prepare for an upcoming charity gala. The club was quiet, the morning mist still clinging to the fairways. I loved these peaceful moments before the members arrived with their designer golf bags and carefully cultivated opinions about everything from wine vintages to proper putting technique. Martha, who'd been the club's housekeeper for over 40 years, caught me in the main hall. "Alex, dear, could you help me with something in the old storage room? I found some boxes that need sorting." The storage room was actually a small building behind the main clubhouse, filled with decades of club history. Martha led me to a back corner I'd never paid much attention to before. "Your grandfather asked me to wait," she said cryptically, moving aside some old golf bags. "Until the right time. I think that's now." Before I could ask what she meant, her arthritis-gnarled fingers pressed something behind a shelf, and a hidden door swung open with a soft click. "What in the world?" I whispered, staring into what appeared to be a small office, untouched for years. Dust covered everything, but I could see a desk, filing cabinets, and a wall safe. "Your grandfather's private office," Martha explained. "Not even your father knows about it. Richard made me promise to show you when you were ready, after what your parents did with that new contract." She trailed off, but I knew what she meant. The membership restructuring my parents had implemented after I signed over my inheritance rights had forced out several longtime members, including Martha's son, who'd grown up playing on these courses. "The combination is your birthday," Martha said softly. "He changed it the day you were born." My hands trembled as I dialed the numbers. Inside the safe, I found several folders, a leather-bound journal, and a letter addressed to me in my grandfather's distinctive handwriting. "My dearest Alexandra," it began. "If you're reading this, it means 2 things. I'm no longer here to protect you, and your parents have finally shown their true colors." I sank into the dusty desk chair, Martha's comforting presence behind me as I read on. The letter detailed years of manipulation and deceit. My parents hadn't just been running the club. They'd been systematically embezzling from it, hiding their theft through creative accounting and membership fee manipulation. "The financial troubles they're likely using to pressure you," Grandpa's letter continued. "They created them. Every penny they've stolen is documented in these files. I knew they'd try to take control from you, which is why I left things as I did. The will they showed you, the one you base your signing decision on, it's not the real one." My vision blurred with tears as I read further. The hidden office contained proof of everything: decades of financial records, surveillance photos, private investigator reports. My grandfather had spent years building a case against his own son, protecting his legacy and my inheritance. But the most damning evidence was in a thin folder marked Original Will Final Version. With shaking hands, I opened it and felt my world tilt on its axis. The will I'd seen, the one that made me wait until 35 to take control. It was a fake. The real will, properly notarized and filed with a separate law firm, gave me immediate control upon his death. My parents had hidden this, forged documents, and manipulated me into signing away rights I should have had 5 years ago. "There's more," Martha said gently, pointing to a sticky note attached to another folder. "Look at the membership records from 1990. I opened the folder and felt my breath catch. The carefully maintained membership ledger contained a secret that explained so much about my family's dynamics. My father, the supposedly pure-blooded Bennett Hare, wasn't Richard Bennett's biological son at all. My grandmother had had an affair with a club employee, and my grandfather had known all along. He loved your father anyway, Martha explained softly, raised him as his own. But he never trusted him with the club's future. That's why everything was meant for you, his only blood relative." The implications hit me like a physical blow. Every snide comment about my unsuitability to run the club, every reference to carrying on the Bennett legacy, it had all been based on a lie. I spent the next hour going through the files, each revelation more shocking than the last. My parents hadn't just stolen my inheritance, they'd been systematically destroying the club I'd grown up loving, all while maintaining their perfect social facade. A text from my mother jolted me back to the present. Emergency board meeting at 3 p.m. Wear something appropriate for once. I looked at Martha, who'd been quietly organizing the files while I processed everything. "What do I do now?" She smiled, and for a moment I saw the steel beneath her gentle exterior. "Your grandfather left you everything you need to take back what's yours. The question is, are you ready to use it?" I thought about every dismissive comment, every manipulation, every time they made me feel small and unworthy. Then I thought about my grandfather, who'd spent years preparing for this moment, ensuring I would have the tools to fight back. "Yes," I said, straightening my spine. "I'm ready." The Oakwood Hills boardroom hadn't changed since I was a child sneaking peeks through its heavy oak doors. The same oversized portraits of past club presidents, including my grandfather, watched over the massive mahogany table where the club's elite made their decisions. But today, something was different. Today, I was different. I arrived 15 minutes early, dressed not in the appropriate cocktail dress my mother had texted about, but in a crisp business suit I'd bought for professional events. Martha had helped me load 3 boxes of documents into my car, each file carefully organized and tagged. "Alexandra," my mother's voice dripped disapproval as she entered. "What are you wearing? And what are these boxes?" "Just some old club records," I replied calmly, watching her perfectly manicured hands fidget with her pearls. Very enlightening reading. Dad strode in next, followed by the board members. Judge Harrison, Dr. Phillips, the Whitmore sisters, and other pillars of local society who'd been my parents' closest allies for decades. Last King Gerald Matthews, the club's accountant, looking nervous as he clutched his laptop. "Let's begin," Dad announced, taking his usual place at the head of the table. "As you know, membership has continued to decline despite our best efforts. Gerald has prepared a presentation on our financial situation." "Actually," I interrupted, standing up. "I have something to present first." My mother's wine glass froze halfway to her lips. "Alexandra, dear, this is a board meeting, not one of your little event planning sessions." "You're right," I agreed, moving to the front of the room. "This is about something much more important. This is about fraud, embezzlement, and a decades-long conspiracy to steal from Oakwood Hills Country Club." The room erupted in murmurs. Judge Harrison leaned forward, his bushy eyebrows drawn together. "Those are serious accusations, young lady." "Yes, they are." I started distributing folders to each board member, and I have proof of every single one. What followed was the most satisfying hour of my life. I laid out everything: the real will, the financial records showing systematic theft, the membership fee manipulation. With each revelation, my parents' faces grew paler. "This is absurd," Dad finally exploded, standing up so quickly his chair toppled backward. "I've run this club for 30 years. "You've stolen from this club for 30 years, I corrected, pulling out my grandfather's journal. And Grandpa knew. He documented everything." Richard was losing his mind at the end. Mom interjected quickly. "Everyone knows that." "Actually, Mrs. Bennet," Gerald Matthews spoke up, surprising everyone. "He wasn't. I helped him gather some of this evidence." My parents' heads whipped around to stare at their supposedly loyal accountant. Gerald squared his shoulders, looking relieved to finally speak up. "Richard Bennet approached me 7 years ago," he continued. "He showed me proof of the embezzlement and asked for my help documenting it. I've been keeping separate books ever since." "You betrayed us," Mom whispered. "No, Diana. You betrayed the club. And your daughter." Gerald turned to the board. "Everything Alexandra is saying is true. I have the digital records to prove it." Judge Harrison was already reading through the documents, his judicial expression growing stormier by the minute. "Charles, Diana, these allegations are extremely serious. The evidence suggests criminal behavior." "There's more," I said quietly, pulling out the final folder. "Dad, would you like to tell everyone about Arthur Collins, the groundskeeper from 1990? The color drained from my father's face. My mother grabbed his arm, suddenly unsteady. "No," I continued. "Then I will. Arthur Collins was my biological grandfather, the man whose family you denied membership to last month because they weren't Oakwood Hills material was actually your half-brother, Dad." The Whitmore sisters gasped in unison. Dr. Phillips dropped his reading glasses. "You see," I addressed the board, "my grandfather, Richard Bennet, knew that his wife had an affair with Arthur Collins. Knew that his son wasn't biologically his. But he loved him anyway, raised him, gave him every opportunity. And how was he repaid? With theft, lies, and the systematic destruction of everything he built. The club's reputation will be ruined. My mother tried one last time. Alexandra, think about what you're doing to the Bennet name." "I'm thinking about justice," I cut her off. "I'm thinking about the members you've driven away, the employees you've underpaid, the legacy you've tarnished, and I'm thinking about what Grandpa Richard would want me to do." I pulled out the final document, the real will properly notarized and certified. As the legal owner of Oakwood Hills Country Club, I moved to remove Charles and Diana Bennet from their positions, effective immediately. I also moved to begin a full forensic audit of club finances, with the intention of making restitution to all affected members. The vote was unanimous. The aftermath was both swift and far-reaching. My parents left the club that day and haven't returned since. Last I heard, they'd moved to Florida. Apparently that's where disgraced country club managers go to retire. The audit revealed over $12 million in misappropriated funds over 3 decades. Rather than press criminal charges, I offered them a deal: repay everything they'd stolen, sign over their personal assets, and never contest my ownership of the club. They agreed, probably realizing it was their only chance to avoid jail time. Oakwood Hills is different now. I reinstated the members who'd been forced out, including Martha's son. The Collins family, my newly discovered relatives, were offered lifetime memberships. The stuffy dress code was relaxed, and we started offering golf lessons to local school children. "Your grandfather would be proud," Martha told me last week, watching from the terrace as a group of kids learned putting basics on the practice green. This was always his vision, a place where people could come together, not be kept apart. The portrait wall in the boardroom has changed too. Alongside the stern faces of past presidents, there's now a photo of Arthur Collins, the groundskeeper who loved his job so much he stayed even after watching another man raise his son. Next to it hangs a picture of Grandpa Richard, and beside that is a new addition: my official portrait as club president, the first woman to hold the position. Sometimes, during quiet mornings when the dew still clings to the fairways, I sit in my grandfather's hidden office, my office now, and read his journal. His words have become a guide, not just for running the club but for living with integrity. "The true measure of a legacy," he wrote, "isn't in the money we leave behind or the buildings we put our names on. It's in the lives we touch and the wrongs we make right." Last month, we hosted the first annual Richard Bennet Memorial Tournament, with all proceeds going to local education scholarships. The club was packed, not with elite members showing off their designer golf wear, but with families, children, and people who genuinely love the game. As I watched the sunset paint the greens in shades of gold, I thought about legacy, about justice, and about the different ways we can choose to honor the past while building a better future. My parents tried to steal my inheritance, but they couldn't steal what really mattered. The values my grandfather instilled in me, the strength to stand up for what's right, and the vision of what Oakwood Hills could truly be. The service entrance only sign came down the day after the board meeting. Now there's just one entrance to Oakwood Hills Country Club. The same door welcomes everyone, just as my grandfather always intended.